I did a video about how I am a natural born citizen of the United States despite not being born inside the country. And I'm not talking about on a military base. And I wanted to give some examples of situations where somebody born outside of the United States is actually a citizen at birth. In other words, a natural born citizen can just apply for a consulate. And doesn't need to go through an immigration process. You would not believe the amount of people I have consulted with that did not realize that they acquired citizenship at birth through one of their parents. Typically, it's a U.S. citizen father who was abroad out of the country. Many times it is in the military, but not necessarily. And, then came back. They didn't maintain a relationship and they don't know that they're actually a U.S. citizen at birth. So let's talk about what those requirements are. For people born outside of the United States after 1986 to one U.S. citizen parent, that citizen had to have been physically present in the U.S. for a period of 5 years prior to the child's birth, 2 of which were after the age of 14. Meaning, let's say you're born abroad in 1987 to a U.S. citizen dad and a foreign mom. If your dad had lived in the U.S. for cumulatively 5 years prior to your birth, 2 of which were after the age of 14, you are a U.S. citizen at birth. You are a natural born citizen. Now, let's talk about people born prior to 1986, but after 1952. So in between 1952 and 1986. The same scenario. The difference is the dad would have had to have been physically present in the U.S. for 10 years, 5 of which were after the age of 14. Okay, so still usually a requirement that applies to most cases that at least I consult with. So the dad or the U.S. citizen had lived in the U.S. for 10 years total prior to your birth, 5 of which were after the age of 14. Then there's the people born between 1941 and 1952, so going even further back, this 11-year period. The U.S. citizen had to have resided prior to the child's birth abroad for 10 years, at least 5 of which were after the age of 16, okay? However, if that parent served in the armed forces between 1941 and 1946, then 5 of the required 10 years may have been after age 12, okay? And so not 16, just 12. If the parent served between 1947 and 1952, the requirement consists of 10 years of physical presence, 5 of which may have been after 14. So it gets a little bit more nuanced there. Now, I'm happy to consult if you are thinking, maybe I'm a U.S. citizen. Again, you wouldn't believe the amount of people I speak to that I'm the first one to tell them that they are possibly already a U.S. citizen. They don't need to naturalize. They don't need to do a green card application. So just because you're born abroad does not mean you did not acquire citizenship at birth.